Hey guys, how's it going? Perri here, and today I'm going to show you how to light a cozy night scene like this one right here. Let's get to it. So before we jump into today's setup, let's go over a quick overview of what we're going to have to do and what we're going to need to get going. First things first, we're going to be using 3 lights for this setup right here. One for the main key light, which will be motivated by a practical light. One for some moonlight, which will add a little bit of a color contrast to the scene. And a small or portable LED light with built-in effects so that we can mimic or replicate the TV flickering light effect or even a little bit of candlelight. For my key light, I will be using the aputure 120D with the softbox as well as the honeycomb grid attachment on it. This will not only help get a nice soft light for the scene, but it'll also help narrow and focus the light by having the honeycomb grid attachment on it as well, because that'll stop any spill from going onto other areas of the background that we don't want the light falling on. If you don't have an aputure 120D or another similar light to this, you could use almost anything. Getting a garage light from Home Depot or even just a lamp that you have that has a bright enough bulb in it will also work for this. You just want to make sure that you can diffuse and soften the light a little bit because you don't want the light to be too harsh. For the moonlight, I will be using my Golden Eagle LED 3000 light. And once again, the same thing applies here where you can use almost anything you have on hand. You just want to make sure the light is bright enough. And for the small portable LED light with built-in effects, I will be using the Falconized F7 as well as the Falconized F7 Mini because I'm going to be doing both candlelight and a TV look, but you really don't need to do both. So I'm just going to go one step further with my scene here, but like I said, all you really need are 3 lights for this setup. And finally, before we jump into the actual setup here, I just want to take a moment to focus on the set itself. The whole idea behind this is that it's a cozy night scene, so we want to make sure we have some props and some decor that will add to the scene. So I made sure to add in some cushions, blanket, some candles and other decor on the coffee table, and some practical lights. So in case you don't know what practicals are, they're lights that are in your scene that aren't necessarily lighting anything, but are there more for visual aesthetic. So they usually aren't bright enough to properly light our scene, but when you are lighting the scene, you want to make it seem like the light is coming from them. So for example, I've got the floor lamp in the corner here, and I've dimmed it right down so it doesn't look too bright or too hot, but it has this nice warm glow to it. This is also what we're using to motivate our main key light, but I'll get back to that in a minute. I've also included some string lights in the background as well, just to add a little extra warmth and coziness to the scene. Once our practicals and decor are all set up, we're ready to get started with our setup. Alright, so we're going to start off with the main key light, and that will be motivated by the practical lamp that is in the corner of the room here. That means we're going to light the scene to make it look like the main light source is coming from that lamp, even though it's not. Because we can't really control how the light is aimed or how exactly it lights our scene, and we don't want it to look too bright in the shot, we had to dim that light down significantly, making the light it is emitting on the scene quite dim. So we're going to set up our main light, the aputure 120D, near it and aiming it at our subject from the front side. Now, we want this light to look nice and soft, especially considering the lamp in the corner does have a nice lampshade on it. So this light here would be quite soft coming through that because the lampshade would be diffusing light a little bit. So we want to make sure we match that as best as possible. So I went ahead and attached my light dome softbox on the aputure 120D. As you can see, it's doing a nice job of softly lighting the scene, but it isn't the right color temperature. The 120D is a daylight balanced light, but the lamp is a very warm color temperature, so we're going to want to try to match that as best as possible. So you could use some colored gels for this to make it warmer, or if your light is a bicolored light, you could just dial in the warmer setting to make the light look warm overall. But in my case, I don't have that. My aputure 120D is just a single color temperature, daylight balanced, so I had to go ahead and just alter the color by putting in a gel in front of it. If you're doing this as well, make sure to do it inside the softbox because you want that colored gel to be as close to the light source as possible. As you can see, that looks much better, but I feel the light is spilling all over the place a bit too much. So I'm going to go ahead and attach my honeycomb grid to the softbox. This will really help narrow and focus the light so we have more control on where the light falls while retaining this soft diffused look. Now, that looks great, but the scene is still too simple or boring looking for my liking. There's not enough separation or color contrast in the scene. So now we're going to set up our moonlight to come in from the window. Alright, so now we're going to grab the second light, which in my case is the Golden Eagle LED 3000 to be our moonlight. So I'm going to take this outside and shine it through the window to come on in the scene. Quickly going back to the topic of color temperature, we want this light to have quite a contrast with the warmer color of our main key light, and a bit of a blue color is typically used for moonlight. So if I left this light as is, since it's also daylight balanced, it would appear to be very white and neutral, not looking warm or cool, since we have our white balance dialed in to match the daylight at 5600 Kelvin. So if we want to make it cooler and bluer, we can just add a colored gel to that as well. So I'm just adding some clear blue plastic sheets I have in front of the light to tint the white light blue. Some people like making it quite blue, but I feel like keeping it a bit more subtle will be better and look a bit more natural. But you can make it as blue as you like. Once we have the light tinted, we can make sure we set it up in place. Now, you don't want to try to get this light as high as possible, so it's aiming slightly down when it's coming through the window. But in my case, it was a little bit difficult to do that because the room I was shooting in is on the second floor of my house, so I couldn't really quite get my light high enough to do this. The other drawback for me was the fact that the side of my house is almost like a little alley, so the next house beside mine is quite close to it, so I didn't have the luxury of distance here to play with, so the light was actually quite close to the window. So I found if I shone it just directly through, it was way too powerful, even on a low setting, and it just created these harsh shadows, and you kind of saw this bright spotlight look on the window. So that didn't really look natural, that's not what Moonlight would look like, so I had to kind of improvise here a little bit. So I decided to shine it actually at the brick wall of my neighbor's house, and the light would bounce off that, coming into the window instead. Alright, now that it's all set up and turned on, we can just make sure we set it to the appropriate brightness for our scene, and now everything's looking fantastic. So it's time for the finishing touch, the TV flickering effect. So I know the scene looks great as is, but I just feel like adding a little extra texture and dimension to it will take it one step further. So that's where we add a light that mimics the flickering TV effect. So if our character in the scene here was in this room relaxing, even though they're reading a book, they might have a TV on in the background, so that would be emitting light that's kind of flashing and flickering as the images change. So yes, we could use an actual TV if we wanted to, but if you don't have a TV in the room, you can use something like a little portable LED light that has built-in effects. So like I mentioned before, I'm using the Falconized F7 because this has a built-in TV effect. So this just basically dims and brightens the light a bit in random pattern to mimic how light would be changing depending on what's playing on the TV. As you can see, this is how it looks without the added light, and this is how it looks with the effect light added in. I just placed it more directly in front of my subject in place of where the TV might be. Now, if you don't have a light with built-in effects, you can just get any light that you can dim down in random patterns to match a similar type of look. And just because we can, I'm going to go one step further here and add in a little bit of a candlelight flicker effect as well. It'll be very, very subtle. You probably won't even see it all that much, but I'm going to give it a shot anyway. So as you can see, there's some candles in the scene on the coffee table in front of our subject. Because the light coming from them is too dim for exposure, it's not really impacting the scene all that much. So, if you have another small portable LED light with effects, you can always turn it onto the candle setting, which mimics candlelight flickering in a warm color. So there you have it, that's how to light a warm, cozy night scene with just a few lights. All the lights I used in this setup here today are listed in the description down below if you're interested in checking them out. And with that, this tutorial is over. Thank you so much for watching and checking this out. I really hope it helps you in getting creative with setting up your own cozy nighttime scenes. If you like what you saw here today, make sure to drop me a like and leave me a comment letting me know what you thought. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications because it would really help out my channel, and that way you'll be able to stay up to date and always be in the loop on when I drop new videos. I've got a lot more lighting tutorials and a lot more cool stuff coming your way, so you're not gonna wanna miss it. And if you wanna follow me elsewhere, you can follow me at AlexSPerri on Instagram and Twitter, because I will be posting a lot of behind the scenes stuff there and a lot of lighting setups there as well. And as always, I'm Alex Perri. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. See ya!